Welcome to your daily F1 news. Today we'll be discussing the latest developments regarding Daniel Ricciardo and his hopes of returning to the grid in 2024. As many of you may know, Ricciardo is currently Red Bull's third driver for the 2023 season. The 8-time F1 race winner is targeting a return to the grid next year, and recently, he and several team principals addressed his future during the Australian Grand Prix. After attending a Grand Prix for the first time in his role as Red Bull's third driver, Sky Sports F1 assessed the likelihood of the Australian making a permanent return to the grid in 2024. Ricciardo was let go by McLaren at the end of last season after a hugely disappointing two-year spell with the team. Rather than taking a 2023 seat towards the back of the grid, he opted for a year out of sorts by rejoining Red Bull. Ricciardo established himself as one of the sport's top drivers by winning 7 races for Red Bull between 2014 to 2018. However, he decided to leave for Renault before moving on to McLaren 2 years later. While there have been flashes of brilliance, most notably a victory for McLaren at Monza in 2021, Ricciardo's stock has gradually fallen. His popularity and commercial value alone could almost guarantee him a seat at some teams. But with Ricciardo holding out for a drive in a competitive car, it remains unclear whether an offer to tempt him back onto the grid will be forthcoming. During the Australian Grand Prix weekend, Ricciardo, along with several team principals who have worked or in some cases tried to work with him, spoke about his future. Red Bull chief Christian Horner oversaw Ricciardo's development with the team earlier in his career and made a stunning admission about the Australian. Horner said, when he first turned up after the final race of 2022 in Abu Dhabi, I think the problem is when you drive a car that obviously has its limitations, you adapt and you try and adjust to extract the maximum out of that car. And it was clear when he came back, that he picked up some habits that we didn't recognize as the Daniel that had left us 2 or 3 years earlier. Despite their initial concerns, Horner insists that after some time off during the winter, Ricciardo swiftly began to resemble the driver that won 7 races in 5 seasons with Red Bull. Having had time off over Christmas and so on and a chance to reset, when he's come back and got into the 2023 work, he's hit the ground running, Horner said. We're certainly seeing him getting back to being far more reminiscent of the Daniel that we knew. Ricciardo put on a brave face as he attended his home Grand Prix as somewhat of an outsider, sat on the Red Bull pit wall watching Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez driving the RB19. It would have undoubtedly been painful for the 33-year-old to be on the fringes in front of a passionate Australian crowd. But he says it's actually been time away from the track that has clarified his desire to return. The signs are pointing towards getting back on the grid, Ricciardo said. I feel like that's where I'm tracking in my head, and a few of the habits that I'm having or doing are pointing towards that. He added, it's only been a few months, out of F1, but I think some itches have been scratched, so to speak. I've actually weirdly found that the days that I've had no schedule are the days when I've actually done training, and I've done things like I would before.